Okay, looks like everything's working. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. As I've said before, having a few technical difficulties at the moment, but I think everything looks like it's starting off okay, so that's great. Really excited to have Carly joining us again. Carly is an associated author and has been really involved in Global Girls Online Book Club, which is really great. You probably saw Carly not long ago when we had Take Me Home as our book of the month, and we had a competition for that, which we'll talk about shortly. But for those who don't know Carly, Carly lives on the mid-north coast of New South Wales. She's proud mum of 4 children and wife of one very patient mechanic. And she's lucky enough to spend her day doing the two things she loves most, being a mum and writing stories set in beautiful rural Australia. She has written 18 novels, I think that's right, and Once Burnt, Twice Shy. Oops, I'm trying to show you, is her 18th novel. So just wanting to talk to her about that tonight and anything else at all that people want to talk to her about. Also wanting to remind people that thanks to Alan and Unwin, if you ask a question during the Facebook Live, you'll have a chance to win a copy of Once Burnt, Twice Shy. So thanks, Carly, for joining us again.
Thanks for having me back again.
Just wondering before we start talking about Once Burnt, Twice Shy, do you, as I said, Take Me Home was our November book club read, and I announced a bit earlier today the random draw I did for our monthly competition, and the winner of that was Rihanna Lockhart. And I know you had a look through the people who entered, and you'd like to announce someone else who's won as well.
Well, the winner, and it was really hard because everyone put up gorgeous puppies and beautiful gardens and lounging in bed. They all looked really lovely. But I ended up yelling out to my husband because I just couldn't choose. It was too hard. There was too many cute little faces, dogs and human. And so the winner was Geraldine Farini, F-U-R-I-N-I, Farini.
Thanks for that.
Yeah,
So,
I think she gets a book.
yeah, thanks. I'll contact Geraldine and arrange her prize for her.
That's lovely.
So, just wondering if you wanted to start off by telling us a bit about Once Burnt, Twice Shy.
Yeah, this one I wrote in the first lockdown we had actually, because that came just after all our fires went through, and it had time. I had time to sort of sit and sort of think about things, and things had calmed down a little bit after the initial part of the year, early part of the year. So I think it was mainly I really wanted to find a way to celebrate all the good things that came out of it, because there was so many horrible things and everyone was so traumatized, and I still to this day still are, I think, in a lot of places. I know in our little community there are. It's really hard to sort of I think it brings it back quite often. I don't think it's been quite long enough yet. I think it's still very raw for a lot of people. But I wanted to write a book about the fires, but not so much the horror of it, as the community, the outcomes that came out of it, and all our little local heroes. And the RFS, of course, were always going to be front and centre, but they were spread so thin that so many people had to step up, and we had farmers in all our farming communities joining up and making their own little strike teams and basically holding off the fires from running through town. At one stage, it looked like they were going to go right through Barraville, and that was just horrific to think of. You don't sort of think of fires going through your town, and that's where it was headed. But it was just, and and not even just the actual firefighter people. It was our local community services clubs and sporting clubs, and everybody just sort of opened up their doors and brought people in who needed homes, housed our animals at the showground. That was amazing. there was so many things that I think needed to be celebrated in a way, and people, you know, admired for what they were doing because it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have to say reading it myself, it certainly brought like the thoughts of the community and everything like that, as well as um, having a little bit of a feel of what people in the town and everything must have been feeling.
Yeah. Oh,
Mm,
that's good.
mm.
Yeah.
And do you have some connections too, like the RFS and
Not personal connections, but
mm,
our communities are pretty small, so I've sort
yeah,
of you know, there's teachers and things that are on our RFS sort of, and we've got lots of stations around us. We've got quite a few because each of the main arms around our place all have their own little stations, and I think it's just inevitable. Everyone sort of knows someone who is in the RFS or
mm,
whatever. So yeah, it's a very close knit little community. So you sort of get to know everybody.
mm. And what sort of research did you do when you wrote this book?
A lot of, well, the actual research part, I did contact a lot of people I knew personally who were in the RFS or who had put up Facebook stories about things if they had sort of been
Mm,
affected in that. And I just wanted to, find out what they went through, things that they sort of noticed or whatever. And with the RFS, it was mainly just trying to get any kind of um, I don't know, just sort of structure to what they do and stuff, just to make
mm,
the scenes sort of a little bit more realistic. But yeah, basically it was just sort of a lot of talking to people, a lot of reaching out to see if anyone had different stories about the things that I remembered too, so that
yeah.
I could sort of combine them. And there were quite a few fictitious things in there, but there was also a lot that were based on things that happened here. So
Mm,
it was
mm,
yeah, and it was really quite emotional writing it. I found
yeah.
sometimes I
Mm,
wasn't expecting it in a lot of cases, and sometimes just while I'd be writing, it would just sort of hit me again. So it's sort of been a funny thing. It's
mm.
Yeah, I've sort of not really been affected by anything like this before,
Oh,
and I
really?
wasn't
Yeah.
even a person that had their home burnt or
Mm,
were trapped in any fires or
mm,
anything, but they were just all around us all the time, and I
mm,
think that kind of is what played on my mind.
mm, mm. And your book's only quite newly out, but have you had anyone in your community give you any feedback from the book?
Yeah, I've had a few people locally that have read it and loved it.
Mm,
Not anyone that's actually commented on any particular part of it either yet. I think a lot of the locals are still trying to find it and stuff in shops and things, but
mm,
I've had a lot of nice feedback on it with the reviews and that so far, which is lovely. It's always a relief. So yeah, it seems to be, and I thought it would resonate with more than just my community because there were so many towns right across Australia that were
yeah.
in the same boat as we were. So
Mm,
and cities, like
mm,
sometimes it went everywhere, didn't it? So I think it will be something that a lot of people will be able to identify with.
yeah, yeah. And something that makes a very big starring appearance in your book, the guinea fowl.
Oh, my guinea fowl. I've actually just got some brand new hatched ones, actually. So I don't even know why I do it to myself. I'm starting the cycle all over again. Yes, well, I figured I had to put the guinea fowl in there because I had so many people always saying, this guinea fowl have to be in a book. But
Mm,
I slipped them in there because they were actually, I wouldn't have known yeah, they would have had to fight for themselves, I think, because you can't
yeah.
catch the stupid things unless they're in a cage. So
Mm,
that would
mm.
have been quite horrific, actually.
Yeah, yeah. And we've got a lot of people watching, which is really great. So just reminding people watching, if you have a question for Carly, please type it and I'll read it out and you'll have a chance to win a copy of Once Burnt, Twice Shy. So a few questions coming through already. Jill wonders if you've always wanted to be an author.
I've always liked writing and dreaming up stories, like daydreaming, I guess you call it.
Mm,
I didn't actually think I would write. I didn't actually think I'd ever be published, really. I don't think that actually. And even when I was writing, I sort of wrote for myself and then decided at some point I really want to try and do this properly. So I went and, joined groups and tried to work out how to do it. And even then, I think my main focus was always, I just want to write a book and have a publisher like it.
Yeah.
And that was what my aim was, sending it off to publishers, getting it sort of in front of people. And then when it was actually accepted, I hadn't actually thought any further than that. So it was like a big shock, actually. It was like, oh my God, what happens now? Like, this is sort of the only thing I was thinking of. But then it's sort of, it morphed into something a lot bigger, which was lovely. And I was very, very lucky. So, probably never thought of being an author, but I always loved writing. It's just something I always did.
Yeah. And when you were a child growing up, did you like write little stories then?
I did. I used to send stuff off to competitions you'd find in magazines and things. And I think a lot of my daydreaming, I actually put it down to, we used to travel quite a lot. We used to live away and then coming back here to Nana and Pop for, holidays and Christmas and stuff. So I was always stuck in the middle between my brothers when we did long trips. So it was my way of escaping, the torment of the back seat with my two brothers. So I think that's why I started, I guess that's where it came from, just all those daydreams and turning them into stories.
Yeah, yeah. And Belinda wonders, how many of your books are standalones, or are there any series in your books?
There's only really the one series. Everything else is pretty much a standalone. The only thing recently was I did use a character in a new book from an older book, but he was sort of a minor character that, as I was writing this new book, I thought, I know just the character for this main person. So I sort of snapped him up because I felt like he needed a book of his own, which was really good. And I'd never really done that before. So that was really interesting, taking in a character you sort of only kind of knew, but not didn't know too well.
Yeah.
So that was lovely.
Yeah. Do you think that might be something you might do a little bit more of?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, because sometimes, not that I often read back over my old books, but I have now and again, and I think I should do it probably when I get time a little bit more often, because I think sometimes you do pick up some of these characters that maybe were supposed to do something in your book but never really quite made it, because my characters tell me what they want to do anyway. So it would probably, I would probably find other characters in other books that would, have their own book down the track.
Yeah. And Wendy says you've written so many books. She wonders how long it takes you usually to write a book.
It depends. This one actually took about 4 months, and maybe 5 months. The next one that's coming out took 4 months, because I actually had another book that was supposed to be submitted to my publisher, and they didn't quite want that genre. So I had accidentally written a different genre. I didn't know I did that. And then when I did it, I thought, it's too late now. I've already finished it. But wasn't quite what they were looking for. So I had to then I was actually a little bit panicking, and I only had 5 months to submit a new book, and I wrote that one in 4. So that was, it can be done. But I think a nice, relaxed kind of writing would probably be about 7 months. That'd be nice to be doing it sort of at my own pace.
Yeah.
But panic writing can be done in 4 months.
And what happened to the one that was the wrong genre?
Well, it's actually, at the moment, it's with another publisher.
Okay.
And if that doesn't get picked up from them, I'll just self-publish it, I think. To be honest, I'm actually kind of looking forward to it, because I get free range with the cover, and I'm just so excited. I don't know what I'm going to do first about the cover. So I don't know what will happen with it. I mean, down the track, hopefully it'd be nice to have it published, but with a publisher, but it's okay if it doesn't.
And what are you right? Sorry, can you tell us anything about the one that you've just written that hasn't been published yet?
The one for next year?
Yeah.
Yes, it's actually, some of the people who follow me on Facebook probably heard me talk about it once before. I dubbed it Bones in the Dam, but it was not very attractive name. It's set in a drought, during a drought, and in a farm dam, these bones turn up, and it sort of leads into a backstory during World War II, and an old World War II man who, I can't really say too much, but anyway,
Has
it
it got
leads
a
to a
bit of a
backstory that's
dual?
set in World War II.
Has it got a bit of a
Yeah.
dual timeline?
It has, which I found so fascinating. I wasn't sure that's what I was going to do with it, but really interesting in the research in that one. I just loved doing it. It was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a slight dual timeline.
And that's the first time you've done that?
No, I've done a few. Haven't done one for a while, but I've done quite a few, well, not quite a few. There's probably about 4 with a dual timeline at one stage. I think If Wishes Were Horses had a diary type thing with the Light Horse in it. Poppy's Dilemma has a World War One diary or letters from a soldier. And I think Tallowood Bound's got a World War II in Townsville sort of backstory from the Americans. Yeah, there's a couple of them, and I do really love doing those. Actually, I love history, and the research, they do not get done usually in 4 months.
Yeah, that's what
I get myself lost in the research and forget what I'm doing. But I really love writing those ones, actually.
Yeah. And Jill wonders if you've got a favourite genre to read, and I'm wondering if maybe you've been reading anything lately you could recommend to us.
I was lucky enough to read Michael Trant's new one that's coming out next year, called Wild Dogs. I can't think what it's called now. That's a bit awkward. Actually,
have you got it there?
I don't know. I might have it here. I don't seem to have it there. It's in my bedroom. It was early copy to read, and it is really lovely. I really enjoyed it. It's an outback sort of suspense thriller type thing. Really good. And I love reading anything Australian. I don't tend to read too much rural fiction because I write it so much, I suppose. But I love anything set in Australia. I like and I like rom-coms. I like all sorts of stuff, really. I like a lot of Scottish stuff. And it just depends on what mood I'm in, really, and what I want to read.
Yeah. And Mark wonders if you've had a favourite book you've written. That might be a hard one.
At the time, they're all your favourite, I guess, because otherwise you wouldn't probably write them. But for different reasons, I suppose, Poppy's Dilemma I always love because it was based on a true story that happened locally. And I had such a connection with that. I have actual letters written during World War One by a Australian digger in the trenches in France or something. So these 100-something-year-old letters that I've got, and they are just so valuable and important to me. I just love them so much. And that was a lot of the inspiration that came to the book from those letters and from the actual story.
So how did you come about them?
Sorry?
How did you get them?
Well, it was actually a little bit spooky because I'd been researching the soldier from the real story. It was in a newspaper, an old newspaper, so I'd sort of looked for that, and a website kept popping up every time I did a search, and it didn't seem to fit anything. And I used to just sort of, I don't know what that is, and just keep scrolling past. And one day I clicked on it, and it was a man who'd set up a website with all this photocopied information that he'd found in a shoebox in a secondhand store about 20 years earlier. And it had all these letters and mementos from Alec McLean, who it must have been one of his relatives somewhere down the track, a sister or a mother or someone that had kept all of his stuff. And somehow it ended up in a secondhand store somewhere, and he just stumbled across it. And when I told him what I was doing and researching and writing the story of what happened to him after the war, he sent them to me, and I was blown away because and I'm still to this day. They actually, with our fire thing, when we had to have our bags packed and have a car ready, that was one of the things that went in my car. That and our passports. So I love them so much. They were just so important. So I guess in a way that story is always going to have a special part of my heart. But Also my Scotland book, I loved
Yeah.
it so much too.
Mm,
I felt such a connection with that book because it had so much of my own stuff in it and our trip and everything. But I don't know, they all sort of become special in a little way, I guess.
yeah, yeah. And Sharon wonders if you have much input in the cover.
Not a great deal. They do try. I mean,
Mm,
they do ask, but I
mm,
think ultimately it's up to marketing, and they kind of have the say. It has to be all very marketing and what's on the bookshelves and who decide. Yeah,
yeah.
the big
I'm always
stores.
interested when they have, like most of your books do, a big picture of one of the characters, how
Mm,
sometimes I'm sure they aren't quite like you
no.
imagined, I would think.
I do get a look at it and they ask, um, they ask my opinion. And a couple of
Mm,
times I have said, doesn't really look like her.
yeah.
But yeah, basically, I mean, they try. If there's
Mm,
something that is really not working or something, I'm sure they would try their best to help. But they do only have like a limited, I guess, time with their cover artist that they have to sort of
mm,
slot in and do things with. So,
mm,
and yeah, it's just got to be based on what's on the shelves at the moment. They all seem
yeah.
to have a theme and a colour and a whatnot.
Yeah. Have you ever seen some though and thought, oh wow, that's exactly how I thought they would have looked?
Um, Not really. I don't know. I think it's
Mm,
because I don't know. I don't think any of them ever look the same in your head. But then
mm,
I don't know if I could ever really describe someone either.
yeah.
I always panic if I had to go into front of those police with the sketch artist. I don't think
And
I'd be able to
describe,
describe
yeah.
someone. So I always sort of think I don't think I'd be much good anyway if they said, tell us who your
Mm,
actual ideal character
mm,
looks like. So
mm,
unless you've got someone in mind to start with, I think it's a little bit hard to ever get them properly. But
yeah.
I mean, mostly they grow on you and they become that character anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And Judith wonders what your favourite writers were when you were growing up.
Well, as a kid, I did the whole Enid Blyton and
Mm,
all those sorts of things. When I got a little bit older, my nana was my inspiration for reading. She was the only person in my family I ever saw reading. And she used to have Mills and Boon by the
mm.
millions. Everywhere you look in the house, there'd be stacks of Mills and Boon. And I used to sort of sneak those and read those and think I was very, very grown up. And I think
How
they were
old
my
were you
first
when you were
introduction.
reading Mills and
Oh,
Boon?
11.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could have been younger, but I do know that I probably wasn't really that interested in them at that time. But
Mm,
I did find when when I first got married and we moved away to a new town, I didn't know anyone. And I used to just go and buy these 20 cent or 10 cent Mills and Boon and just read them by the
mm,
bag load. They were
mm,
really great. So later on in life, I guess I sort of got into them. But
mm.
then I was also reading Flowers in the Attic at some obscene age, and I'm
Uh,
pretty sure it's because my mother was not a reader that she let me
she
read
didn't know.
these because I'm
Yeah.
given to me from a friend, from her friend.
Yeah.
And I thought later on, I don't think she knew what was in these books when I was allowed to read
Mm,
them. But
mm,
yeah, so it was sort of a wide variety.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
And Sharon wonders if you have a writing routine and whether you write every day.
I try to write every day. It doesn't happen lately. Lately, my routine's just gone out the window completely. But I do try as soon as my last child got home has gone to school, that's usually when I come home and I write, and then hopefully finish by the time she comes home on the bus. So
Mm.
that's the plan. But then my other daughter has moved home recently with a grandchild.
Oh,
So
okay.
they are very big time wasters, and it's
Mm.
often drops in for a coffee and then I get sidetracked with the baby and then we have to go and do something and we go shopping and then it's
Mm.
like I've got to go home and write. So yeah, I've had to become very strict lately and get back in my routine.
Mm, mm.
Mm.
And Wendy says your book Take Me Home found me looking up photos I'd taken in Scotland. She just loved her trip to Scotland. She's wondering about your travels to Scotland. Have you been there more than
Mm.
once or?
So far only once. We were planning on going back, but who knows when that's going to happen anymore. But yeah, we'd been planning a Scotland trip and went on it. And it sort of wasn't till I got home that I decided I was sort of going to write that book. But yeah, it's just such a beautiful place. And I just love that I could include so many of the places we went to. And I've had lots of people actually who've read the book and tell me how much, it reminds them of their trip too, which is lovely because it's such a lovely place. And I'm sure I'll be continuing to look through my photos often until I can go back. So
yeah. I'm hoping I'll be able to go sometime.
So
and
beautiful.
reading your book, I think it makes us want to more.
I miss it.
Yeah. And like we said before, you've written lots and lots of books, got lots and lots of characters. If you could choose to be one character for a day, who would you choose and why?
Oh my goodness. That's a really hard one. They all seem to have so much fun. And that's why I love writing them, because they have these lovely lives that you'd love to have. It'd probably be one of the ones who live on a farm, which, let's face it, most of them do. Maybe, is it Riley from who is Riley from Fool Me Once. I think maybe she's got a lovely, beautiful big property, and it's got the creek running through it and all her horses and cattle. Probably Riley. That'd be a nice character to be for a day.
And we have a lot of viewers from outside Australia. So, and I know they can buy your books on Book Depository or Amazon. But just wondering if I know I sometimes see people from other countries wanting to have a good taste of the Australian life. What book would you recommend that someone outside Australia read first if they really want to have a taste of Australian life?
Goodness me. Picking a hard one tonight, aren't you?
I have to think of some different questions to ask you because I've asked you to.
Yeah, great questions. I just can't think of an answer straight away. Pretty much. I know I base a lot of them in the New England, which is over the mountain range from where I live. And it's a really beautiful part of the country. It's sort of, especially if they're not into hot and dry, it's probably a nice middle ground to be, as opposed to the humid on the coast. So probably the New England area has got some beautiful things, and there's been quite a few I stepped there. I think something like this, and there's so many. My one I'm writing at the moment is set there, but that won't be any good to them just yet. There's quite a few anyway, but if you look for the New England thing in the back of the book, I'm sure that'll be one of them.
Yeah.
But if they're wanting a taste, I think they can't go wrong with pretty much any part of Australia. I think they'll find something that they'll like in all of them.
Yeah. And when you start your writing, do you know the ending when you start?
No, not always. No. Sometimes I don't even know the start. Sometimes it's just a scene, smack bang in the middle. Yeah, they're the hard ones to write, because if you've just got an idea that comes to you about a scene or a character or something, it's great because it's a starting point, but then you've got to figure out who the person is and what they're going to do and what their issue is and who's going to be around them that's going to make it harder or easier. And yeah, I don't really plan much at all. As I'm writing, I start taking notes about who's who and maybe what they're going to do in some time.
Yeah.
But until the story kind of forms, which can take a little while, sort of as you're writing, to sort of figure out what's going to happen, it's usually not till I'm getting towards the end that I sort of figure out, hopefully, how to end it.
Yeah. And do you have a favourite writing snack or drink?
Coffee gets me through pretty much. Mainly coffee, but Yeah, I should be like a stick, honestly, because some days when I write, I
You
forget
don't
to
eat.
eat. I'll have
Yeah.
breakfast, start down, and don't eat, and then it's kids are home from school. But I don't think it works that way because I am not a stick, and I don't know why not. But yeah, I don't really have a snack, but definitely coffee. We do
Yeah. To
coffee a
get you
lot.
through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you find one part of your writing process to be the most difficult?
Um, some sometimes the edit, although I used to always love when my very first edit comes back, the structural edit, which is usually quite a big edit because it's where they go through and make sure the story's actually working.
Mm,
And sometimes that can mean a question here and there that they've asked that you suddenly think, oh no, but I know what I can do. And then you've got to go back in
mm,
and sort of take bits out and move things. So it's quite a in-depth edit, the first one. And I used to really look forward to that. But I don't know, sometimes now when it gets
you
here, I'm
find
like,
it more.
really? Do we have to do this? But it's still interesting. I still like doing it. It's very, I think when you work on your own so much, it's nice to have that little voice in the background as an editor sort of.
Mm,
They don't really tell you what to do. They sort of make suggestions or they ask a lot of questions, and they're the things that start you thinking about different things, or adding another layer to something, part of the story or something.
yeah.
But on occasion it's gone very wrong where it's just turned into this whole other storyline, and
Yeah.
then you end up with this massive book and it's like, I don't know what I'm doing now. But after you untangle yourself, it's usually worked out really well.
And do you do anything to celebrate when you finish a book?
Really, although the last book I finished, my husband did bring wine home, which was nice. I think only because I made an announcement on Facebook. But we don't really. I don't know, because I don't ever really finish a book because I've got usually 3 on the go. So it's kind of, once I have done that, it's really great. It's lovely to have that off your shoulders and hit the send button and send it off to your publisher. But I've usually got another couple that I'm already still going with. So it just kind of feels like it's just a never-ending cycle, really, of
Yeah.
writing and sending.
Yeah. Do you ever have a period where you have a total break?
Sometimes, well, actually, yeah, I had quite a big break. It wasn't really intentionally, but it was during the fires, and it was sort of a little bit when everything, and during COVID, everything was a little bit unsettled, and it was sort of, I didn't do a lot of writing at all then, which was the first time in a long time for me. And I've got to say it was not great.
Oh,
Because
really?
when I realised how many books I did have to have out, it was slightly panicky because I usually sort of work so far ahead. And I guess that's why it wasn't a complete disaster, because I was so far ahead. But then I sort of lost that big gap that I like to keep. So I had to sort of work extra hard to sort of get back into that. But I work best when I've got a couple of books ahead.
Yeah.
Because I don't do pressure well.
And now that some of the other states have opened their borders up and we're able to travel a little bit more around Australia, have you got any in-person events coming up, or?
Well, I have, but I'm still not even sure if it's going to happen. It's the way it is at the moment. Every time you book something, you're just not sure. But I do have a quick little, I don't know how many libraries we're doing, but in South Australia in early January. Depending on whether or not that goes ahead, if border things sort of suddenly go haywire. But at this stage, it's all booked and that, so that'll be really lovely. But I've been to South Australia briefly for a writers' festival, but I sort of only went from the airport to Clare and then back home again. So this will be nice to see a little bit of the countryside. I'll have to find out the dates and the places. I haven't really
Yeah,
put them
you'll
up.
have to post them in the group, so because I know that there's quite a few members
really
around there. Yeah.
No, it'd be lovely to see some people out and about. So it'll be the first one in Asia. Well, I did do a quick one to Orange at the beginning of the month, but last month now. but everything, there's been nothing. I think we had 3 festivals cancelled on the ones that I was going to this year, and it's horrible for the organisers. So I'm hoping next year it will be better. I don't think anyone's really booking a lot in at this stage, but I mean, if things go well, I could imagine I'll be getting emails eventually coming in with things that are starting back up again. So looking forward to that. It's been a bit sad sort of not seeing people.
Yeah, and hopefully as a reader, it's great to be able to connect with authors and go to events and that as well.
Yeah, they're lovely to be able to, just to get out and meet faces. I mean, Facebook's great. I don't know what we would do without Facebook, but it's not the same as when you can meet people in person.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for talking to me again. It's always great to talk to you.
No worries.
And look forward to talking to you again about your next book, and maybe looking for some posts from you in the group about what you might have been reading or doing. Or
I will get onto that. I've been a bit slack.
I know you had a problem with one as well.
Oh dear, yes. Technology and myself do not mix.
But yeah, thanks so much, and thanks for everyone who joined in. We had some great questions. Thanks.
Lovely, thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.